Hey, hey, Nicole.
How you doing, Nicole?
I'm good. I'm good. How was your Easter?
It was good. No complaints. No complaints.
Oh, good. We kept it simple over here. Easter egg hunt for the nugget. Anyway, we are back this week. I'm not even going to say the movie. I'm not going to say it yet. We're going to start with our sponsors and then we'll dig in. Okay, so our first one.
IRBY Entertainment, which is an international DJing company and booking service, and we also rent out equipment. But of course, unfortunately, it's only in the Middle East because that's where we're primarily doing our business right now. But if you are a DJ and you want international booking events, then definitely check us out. We are on Facebook as well as on Instagram.
Sweet. And
And Sheer Dev Salon. And I am proud to say that Miss Sweetie was able to get me tight and right for spring break. And I'm natural, so of course it takes some work in order to make this stuff that is not straight. So so we want to thank Miss Sweetie as well as the owner of the salon, which is Kiki Jones over there in Sam Circle in Chesapeake, Virginia. So if you're interested in having the services, definitely check Sheer Data Salon out on Facebook as well as on Instagram.
all right. And finally,
Color You Cosmetics today is it's not a full beat because I didn't contour. So I need to start saying that because I know MUAs look at me like, girl, you think that's a full beat, but it's not. You tried it.
it's full for you.
you yeah, it's full for me, but I didn't contour. I'm not that skilled. I leave that to the professionals. But Color You Cosmetics is the brainchild of Karen Stallings that's here in Norfolk, Virginia. However, her products can get to you internationally because she can ship to you anywhere. And she also has a store in Lithonia, Georgia. If you're interested in becoming a certificate MUA and having your credentials, definitely see her in Norfolk. And if you're interested in products you like to see on my face, then you can either go through me when it comes to how to get in contact with her, or you can definitely find her, or if you want to know exactly what's on my face, I can tell you if you come directly to me. But if you want to buy in for products, definitely see her on Instagram as well as on Facebook. And she has a website. Let me stress that she has a website. Yep.
Okay, cool. Cool. And so, with the business taken care of, let's get into the business. Today, we're talking about the hate you give. All right, Nicole, I'm gonna let you start. What you think?
It was riveting. And of course, it speaks to what's currently going on here in the United States and what's in the news, period. So, when you think about what's going on with us racially, when it comes to what it's like for African Americans to toe the line of being, in our own communities and having to bridge that gap and assimilate into what is considered mainstream America. It speaks to all that. So it was a lot that happened that kind of touches on all those different chords. If this is the kind of life that you live outside of what you see on the news, because some of us, this is our life. It's not
Right.
just what we read in a book. It's not something that we were told. It's not some type of fairy tale. This is an everyday existence for some of us, especially in the inner city.
Right.
The way they tell the take of it, of course, is based off of a true story that happened in California, of a young man that was killed. So, it has remnants of a lot of different cases that we've heard about in recent history. So there
Mhm.
you have that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So, for those who didn't know, this is based off a New York Times best-selling book of the same name, "The Hate
Mm-hmm.
You Give." And it's
And
like,
the book and
go ahead.
and the film came out not too long after the book, which is kind of interesting, because
Hmm.
normally it takes a while for things to grab traction enough to get funded. Because we've talked about on the flip side of, we'll talk about our group through Facebook or whatever, and some other discussions that we've had in other platforms. The funding that's necessary in order to get a movie in the theaters takes a lot. So it literally went from being on the bookshelves to being on the silver screen within a relatively short period of time.
Yep.
And it's not backed by anybody major. It's not backed by an Oprah or anybody like that. So it says a lot as to how quickly they moved to get it
Mm-hmm.
on the screen.
Yeah, definitely. And that's pretty impressive considering the theme of the movie
Yes.
is racial tension, police brutality, all of those things. So go ahead.
Oh, well, I was going to say, if you look at the window in which it's happening, and unfortunately, a lot of what's connected to our culture is selling right now. People see the money that's behind it, that we will fund it, that we will go and see it, that we will go and support it. So even though it does seem like a stretch, because I was looking at some, because I normally go on to see what critics have said, or go on and see what other people who have watched it have said or whatever. There was some controversy on it being an anti-police film. So for those that are into the Blue Lives Matter versus Black Lives Matter, there was a lot of kicking of dust of that. There were some schools that when the book came out, they took it off of a lot of the list, for high schoolers to read, because it's controversial on a few levels. The book itself, and even some of the even some of what was covered in the movie, the drug language, the sexual language, of course the violence, and then you toss in the political aspect of the police against the community, or something of the like. That was all mixed in there. So there you have it. The book was taken off some lists. So I can just imagine um, how difficult it may have even been for this to even be seen in certain communities, or at their theaters. Was it purchased in order to be seen, or was it one of those films like, oh no, we're not going to carry that here? If you want to see that, you have to go to another part of the state or another area in order to view this film
Right,
because of the topic at hand.
right. And good point about it being, oh, this is sellable, because the whole gangster uh drug thing, that whole thing is a trope within itself, that we have a whole generation of movies to go along with it. I started reading the book and I had to put it down because the book I'm working on is similar themed. So I was like, no, no, no. But the movie itself, um, Angie Thomas, the author, put together a good, I don't want to call it an argument. She put together a good presentation of all of the nuance that goes into not just the police brutality conversation, and the us versus them of it all, but she opened the story, or the movie opened with the talk. And as
Mm-hmm.
soon as I saw that, the thing that came immediately to mind is how, I think, what show was it? The hospital show, Shonda Rhimes.
Oh, Grey's Anatomy.
Thank you. Grey's Anatomy. There was an
Oh,
episode.
pause right there. Could you briefly describe what the talk is? Because depending on who's watching this
I'm
broadcast,
getting to it.
they're going to, because there's two different talks. There's
I'm
the
getting,
one we got.
and there's one everybody got.
Yeah.
Well, it brought back to memory the conversation that happened when Shonda Rhimes had that episode where, I haven't watched it in so long, but the
Mm-hmm.
head nurse and her husband had a talk with their son about, okay, if you get stopped by the cops, these are the things that you need to do. Don't care if your other friends are around you, what they may be doing, you make sure your hands can be seen. Okay?
Mm-hmm.
You answer yes, sir, no, sir. All right? You ask to talk to your parents. Okay? It's like the things you need to do to be black, basically, is the conversation. The things you need to do to come home alive is basically
To survive a
amount.
traffic stop. Mm-hmm.
Right. And so the opening scene of The Hate You Give shows the father sitting down with the two oldest and breaking down everything. Put your hands on the dashboard where they can see them and don't you move them. And he breaks down, he has a mantra he has them repeat, and just what it brought to mind to me, going back to the Grey's Anatomy reference, that made big news when that scene was put on TV. And what you heard was a lot of white parents saying, oh, well, I teach my kids how to behave when the police come around too. And it's like, yeah, this ain't that talk. And just the detail that was put into that scene alone, I was like, oh, so you're just going to come out swinging, you know?
Well, you have to, because what it
Mm-hmm.
lends itself to is how specific you have to be. Because unfortunately, we have a generation of children, I swear, that come from, is it Missouri, the Show Me
Mm-hmm.
State. You
Yeah.
have to you have to be very explicit with them and deliberate. They're not like us. There were certain things our parents taught us, but I would say there was a lot that we had to kind of dig through, and just off of inference and context, you know, because some things were taboo, other things were, you should know better. It's a
Right.
whole bunch of different boxes when it comes to being a minority. Period. When it comes to how we're reared and how conversations may happen for us, but
Mm-hmm.
this generation in particular, you can't leave anything to chance because of how media is presented to them.
Right.
Everything is presented to them in a way where it's bite sized, it's quick, and
Mm-hmm.
it's on to the next thing. So if you don't sit them down, if you don't look into their eyes, if you don't have a PowerPoint presentation with exhibits and diagrams and things like that, they're not going to get it because they don't operate that way.
Mm-hmm.
They're not set up that way. So, and then when you kind of couple that with what ultimately got Khalil killed, is he didn't take it seriously, and to me, he didn't. He really didn't understand how close to death he was until he was. Um,
Right.
and I wonder, had the talk had happened for him, would he have adhered? Because she was the whole time telling him, look, you need to do this. She's trying, but he's not hearing her,
Mm-hmm.
because in his mind, how bad can it be? It can be very bad. And it got far more worse.
Right.
Um, so yeah, the talk happens, but depending on, who you are, it resonates differently,
Mm-hmm.
um, for you. And it doesn't matter, if your parents are affluent or whether they come from the gutter,
Mm-hmm.
it's still the same, because we're perceived as a threat. And that kind of ran itself through the rest of the film with 115, just assuming. I've been told before, that's why in the criminal justice system, it's really easy for us to be found guilty, because in their minds, if we haven't done something yet, we will.
We will.
So it's like a preemptive strike
Mm-hmm.
to go ahead and lock you up, go ahead and kill you, or whatever, just to go ahead and get ahead of it. Because if you haven't been ruined, if you haven't been corrupted, or it may be a crime that you committed and we just haven't caught you in it yet,
Mm-hmm.
then this is our way of kind of remedying that. So it touched on a lot of different things. I think that this will be a good film to discuss in a sociology class, in a criminal justice class, and kind of pick it apart, and even a psychology class when it comes to the mind,
Trauma.
and how you know, trauma, and how
Mhm.
you process who you are as a person. So it's like it's a lot, and I don't want to make it seem like, oh, it's so much bigger than what it is. But I think so many different fields, or trains of thought can be brought to this in order to kind of see where it plays out. You know,
Yeah, yeah. You know, it's funny because I'm 40 some odd years old, and my dad, if he sees my vehicle, he checks the tags. He checks the tags, and if it's getting near the date or if, oops, it's gone past the date, he's like, "What are you doing? You need to get that taken care of." Because again, as we know, the easiest thing is, oh, your tag's out of date. Oh, your tail light is out,
is out.
you know. And that is a crime when you look like this. It can be made into a crime when you look
It
like
makes you it makes you suspicious, and then when you're driving, for some, if you're driving a car that doesn't appear to be something that you should be able to afford. And
that.
what's sad about that is just how ignorant people can be. Do they
Yeah,
not understand that you can lease a vehicle? You can rent a vehicle. It's like, so, you too, can have a Land Rover. You too can have a Mazda. I mean, you know, I think about there's certain states, like if you go to Florida and California in particularly, you can rent those things for the weekend. It's nothing for people to go down there to club, and they'll drop a grand or two just to ride around in a car like that they don't own.
right.
So for someone to get their panties up in a bunch because someone of color, or someone they deem, doesn't have to be someone of color, but someone they deem to be not affluent enough to have that vehicle. If you really sit back, there's so much we can afford now because because they've made markets to make it affordable for you to floss and to show off.
Right.
For you renting jewelry and clothes and purses,
Mm-hmm.
shoes. I mean, come on now. So,
Right.
but it goes deeper than that. It's not just about the appearance of looking rich. It's that, how are you able to have something that I should have? Or that,
Exactly.
that I've worked hard all my life and and there was a line, and as a matter of fact, there was a line in, oh gosh, it's on the tip of my tongue. Harlem Nights. We were watching Harlem Nights the other night. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what the cop said to Sugar Ray,
Mm-hmm.
was that that he had worked and all his life, and he didn't have a home as fine as his, and he didn't have, and I'm paraphrasing, but you know that's a you issue, sir.
Right.
you know to
But
a certain extent. Yeah.
in everyday life, though, that's the type of thing that not just adults, but even our kids are faced with when you walk into a quote unquote diverse space. Oh, well, you must live over there. Well, no, I in fact live over there. Well, how could you do that? It's like, well, what? Am I not supposed to be? This is the land of opportunity. Am I not supposed to be successful? And why do you seem offended if I am? These are the types of things that our kids encounter. And you saw different scenes from when Starr was even in school. People were approaching her with, what they thought black speak was, and she was speaking to them in improper English. She had to do an entire code switch in order
And
to be in that environment, to be accepted in that environment.
I remember my mom being asked, and her hair was down to her waist. I
Mhm.
remember my mom being asked, did she straighten her hair with an iron? I didn't know that people even did that, but they do.
I
Not
did that.
African Americans in particularly, but that was a thing. And she was
Mm,
approached on, oh, your hair is so long and straight. Do you iron? And they were dead serious. And my mom was, always, very meek and in her own way. That
mm,
Virgo would pop out every now and again. But and she was like, no, honey, we don't straighten our hair that way. And she kind of like left it
mm,
at that. And if they asked something else, then she would fill that in. But she didn't take the opportunity to give a full cosmetology lesson on exactly how she was able to maintain her hair. But she just helped them to understand that's not how she did it. So, just being in spaces where you have to be the representative of your race and explain, or of your culture, because it's not always race, it's
mhm.
culture too.
Right.
And explain what it is that we do, why it is that we do it. And I don't mind doing that when the questions are genuine. I have an issue when I do it when it comes out of jest or a slight, or you think you're being funny and you think I'm not going to pick up on it. Now that's when you lose me, and then I have to show up in a different way. But
Don't demand
but yeah.
answers about why my people do this or that when it's only bad things happening,
Mm.
because you certainly don't ask those questions in the other direction, sit and reflect and go, well, why do my people do blah, blah,
Exactly. What inspires all of that.
blah.
So
Hmm.
as we're looking at the film, of course, it gets into, you know, cops versus the community, that type of thing. What I found to be interesting is because she was living a dual lifestyle, this is Starr,
Hmm.
it compelled her not to speak. She knew what happened, she knew the ins and outs of it. But what's interesting for her is on the flip side of it, there are other people that have been in the same position, but they didn't speak because of what ultimately happened at the end. The
Hmm.
justice part was justice
Right.
going to be served. Some people don't speak because they feel that it's not. What's my voice going to do? It's not going to change anything. It's not going to bring him back. The cop is still going to be copping. you know, Life is going to still go on. And it's
And
going
she
to probably be
still has
another.
to live in her neighborhood.
Hmm. So,
And then
it's two ways
that,
of looking at it.
yeah, then there's
Hmm.
that piece, the community sense of you're not part of the community if you don't live in this geographical area.
Hmm.
If you live over in the Pines, well, now all of a sudden you're not as black as we are living over here in the bricks.
Oh, yeah. And, if you speak a certain way, and we do our own selves in with that,
Mm-hmm.
black is black.
Right.
Before I open my mouth, you know, people see me as a double minority. You
Mm-hmm.
can't even assume I'm black. I've been to the ER, people thought I was Dominican. But my thing is that you know when you're a person of color,
Mm-hmm.
it shows up. If you're a certain complexion or you wear your hair a certain way or whatever, it's evident. So the thing is for us to parse it out like, oh, because you live over there. If anybody sees me walking the street, they're not going to ask me where I live. They're not going to ask me my pedigree. They're not going to ask me, well, how many generations of college educated people are there in your family? How much money? No one takes the
It comes
time
out,
to.
it comes out
uh,
in other ways. It comes,
Eventually, but
yeah.
initially when people see you and they want to throw prejudice your way or injustice your way, they're not gonna parse
Mm-hmm.
that out. So why do we take the time to say, oh, because she grew up on the other side of the tracks, somehow makes her less of an African American or of a person of color? It doesn't.
Right.
It doesn't disqualify you, because if there's any good to come out of it, you get it. If there's any
Mm.
negative to come out of it, you get that too. And
Right.
no one takes the time to figure out the rest that's in the middle. And I wish that we would come to that understanding. And some of us have, we're becoming more woke, as they like to say.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So yeah.
Yeah. But I remember, again, it put me so much in the mind of what Black kids have to bear, you know. Um, when my family first moved to Delaware, started a new school, first day of school should just be, you know, hey, what's your name? Where are you from? Welcome to the class. We do this, 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 and this. My teacher, sixth grade, my teacher did the whole where are you from? Oh, my family moved here from Brooklyn. She says, oh, so you live here in the city? I said, no, I live out in the suburbs by you. And the other Black kids in the class were kind of like, no, she didn't say that to the teacher. Because, you got to have your good manners in front of good white people, another thing that we tend to do. And the teacher looked shocked. She didn't expect me to say that. But it's like,
She didn't expect you to pick up on the fact that that was a slight in his own way. How can
right.
you assume anything? And would you have asked? And see, that's why before you open your mouth, you have to ask yourself, would
Indeed.
I ask any and everybody this question?
Right.
If an Asian child showed up, if a handicapped child showed up, if a white
Right.
child showed up, if a biracial child showed up, if a LGBTQ kid, would you even think to form your lips to say it? If you would, and then don't
But
say it to me.
that's the, that's the sad part is that they do. I you can probably uh relate to this experience. I've walked into rooms, no rings or anything on fingers, and the first question I'm asked is, how many children do you have? Not, do you have any children? Not even, are you married before you start asking about children? Because the assumption, the narrative that's been put forth is if you look like me, you probably have children with no partner. And I've stood there and watched
And
them
it's
ask,
neither.
huh?
And it's neither for me. So I'll
Well,
be looking puzzled like,
but the fact that because of your complexion, that's the first question and not, oh, well, are you married? Do you have kids? The same order in which you would ask one of my white peers. It's like one of those things where I've walked into spaces, had those questions asked of me, and then watched as they turned around and didn't ask those questions to a white friend standing next to me.
so of
These are
all
the,
of
yeah.
so of all of that that occurred in the movie, what do you
Mhm.
think was the major takeaway from the film?
The major takeaway is we're not fabricating this stuff. This stuff really happens. There are normal people, human beings who happen to have brown skin that butt up against a system that, like we said, assumes that if you are black or brown complected, you've done something and we're going to have to check up on it. And if you live or are seen in this geographic area, well, automatically you got to be up to no good.
Well, a part of this justice that happened with Khalil was that once they realized that he, he had a checkered past, or he was connected, to some gang activity and drug selling,
Mhm.
that it automatically equated to, and that's the part I have to ask, does that equate to someone being worthy of death? When you think about all the things that you can be charged with, you could rape hundreds of women in this country
Mhm.
and never get the death penalty. You could steal millions of dollars, fleece
Right.
people. with schemes and scams and take them for everything they have and not see a death penalty. There's so much that you can do. There's so few laws that are in place that allow your life to be taken. Why is it that, and this needs to be asked, why is it that the presumption of guilt or connections to illegal activity is an automatic okay check mark for if this person ends up dead, that should be fine.
Right.
I don't get that, and that's pretty much what you kind of that it's kind of was that's alluding to is that okay, well, he was doing all this other stuff, so of course he's a criminal, okay, but how many criminals go to the death to the gas chamber or to the firing range? I think that's new, and I think it's in North Carolina, South Carolina. They've added that to their repertoire of executions.
Right.
How many of those people end up getting lethal injection? So you have to kind of when you ask people these questions, they have to sit and really think, where is all that coming from, where one life is worth less or more than another. Now, you can look at your value to society, what people are contributing, sure, but a life is still a life. And there should be a level and range for forgiveness and redemption for everyone, not just for certain people. So I would love to get in this conversation with someone who actually believes somehow that that's justifiable homicide, and ask them if somehow your nephew, cousin, brother, uncle, sister, auntie, mama, daddy fell into a situation, would you be okay with that? And say, well, you know what, they should have listened, they should have hearkened, they should have done exactly what the police told them to. I mean, I just want to know, because I can guarantee you would not feel the same.
Well, the one thing that I struggle with every single time is the ability to use the phrase, I was in fear of my life, to say, oops, they ended up dead. I was afraid, you know?
And
And it's like, okay, so you don't think the person with a gun pointed at them was afraid of you? Especially if it comes out that, hey, they didn't even have a weapon to begin with, or my gosh, they were running away from you.
so
What were you?
what makes see that's where you have to dig deeper, and it really points to what inspires all this.
Right.
What inherently about that person made you afraid? Now they would say, oh, their erratic movements. Oh, his eyes were bulging out. I remember they were saying that about Rodney King, and that he was flailing around. Okay, but if you are a trained officer, and some of these people have had military training, so you've been trained twice. You've been trained militarily to defend your country, and you've been trained civilly in order to defend your city or a city or your area. Then how is it that someone flailing around should spark any fear in you when you're trained, you have a gun, you have a taser, you have mace, you have a billy club? That's four things
You
right
have
there. Huh? You have
you
words.
have
So
words.
before we even get into the weaponry that you have around your belt, there's so many other things that you can do. You have your bare hands, you know. So I just need to understand that, so this someone that is half your age and maybe even a third of your size
Right.
or two-thirds of your size less,
Mm-hmm.
is a threat to you. So inherently it can't be, because you have to know that person's not as trained as you. You have to know that whatever weaponry, and they also have a knife, I forgot that. Whatever weaponry they may have on them, you have all that with you. Plus, if you have backup, they have it too. So it's two, three, four, five, six of everything there.
Right.
So yeah, I would say that's pretty much my takeaway. Well, you found out my opinion about the film early on. So would you? Well, I believe you would recommend someone reading, but would you recommend them reading a book first and watching the film, or what direction would you lead people to go in first?
I always say try to read the book first because there's going to be more nuance, detail, and context than they can usually fit into the
The
film.
film, yeah.
But yeah, once I watched this, I was like, yeah, I'm going to have to go back and finish reading the book. Because even what I started wasn't bad. Like I said, just because I wasn't trying to be influenced in my own writing by her text, I put it aside. So,
So, we have two positive reviews on this movie. Um, and it's very unfortunately it's timely. I wish that it was a topic that was based off of things that happened long ago, like bootlegging.
mhm,
Certain topics, oh, that was like 70, 80, 100 years ago. No, this is
mhm,
very now, and you have to have your mind in the right place to watch it. You
yeah,
know, um, because it does tug on all the emotions, especially if if you live the type of life that would pull you in certain directions of having to make certain decisions and choices and feel a certain type of way, or if you've grown up in a neighborhood that's like that, where the police aren't trusted, or you've had to split yourself up with two identities of being I think you're authentic no matter where you are,
mhm,
as long as you're genuine in your authenticity. If you get what I'm saying. So, if you have to come to work and speak a certain way and behave a certain way, you're just as genuine as if you're talking to your grandma on the front porch and you're splitting verbs and dropping ends on the ends of your words. Um,
mhm,
so so I just think that, I think it's a good film to watch. Just have your head together to watch it. Um,
mhm,
And, I would say to make it more beneficial, watch with a young person and have a courageous conversation, or have them to watch it and then talk to you about it and have a courageous conversation with them so they can think, about some of the decisions that they make, some of the company they keep, and some of the ways they behave when they're outside the supervision of adults.
right.
Um, that's the way I kind of like, that was my takeaway.
I agree, and I was going to make the same point. It, especially with now you have armies of parents clogging up school boards and saying, "Oh no, we can't have these books or these films." They're hitting libraries and saying, "Oh, we can't have these things on the shelves anymore because it's gonna hurt my kids' feelings." Sit your kid down and watch it with them. Don't depend on the school. Don't depend on the library. This stuff is open and available. You can
Yes.
be willing to, like Nicole said, be brave and present it, and then be brave and have that conversation with your kids.
Well, into that part of the show, we talk about how to keep in contact with us and learn more about movies that move. You can definitely follow us on our platforms. We have Nicole Writes, and she does write. You definitely can like and subscribe to any of what we're a part of. Um, Nicole is, finally busted out. She's, a really good writer. She's an even better editor. Thank God.
Way
Ooh,
back to
we could tell
I'm
we could tell you
different.
some stories about my book. Oh my gosh. After I had it edited, it was like, woo, wow. I'm not gonna say what I do for a living, but that's scary.
It always helps to
Um,
have eyes on the thing.
yes, it does. But definitely check her out, when it comes to what it is that she's putting down. She has some books out there. She also has some short writings that you'll be interested in. So check her out for that. I'm Nicole DeCandis, and my website is down right now because it is being revamped because I have to have new images. I got pictures up there from before and some new content. So you can still find me on Facebook and definitely on Instagram for content. And I have some projects coming up. So definitely, follow me for that. I am a life coach, strangely enough. And I, and we both lend ourselves to this platform to talk about something that we love a lot, which is movies and also music. But you can find us on YouTube for more episodes and this episode to be housed there. but it's under Media That Moves We.
Mhm.
And of course, the title of the show is Moves That Move We. But if you want to find us on Facebook and contribute to the conversation, because we take it, to a whole nother platform offline, was online, but off this line.
Yeah.
Definitely join our group, but it is a 3-question join up entry thing. So you answer those 3 little questions. We're not asking anything too deep or too personal, because that's not what we do. We just want to make sure the right people are a part of our platform. We have, we share information about actors, about films. Some of the ideas that we get for the films that we cover come from some of you all. Some people chime in when it comes to some interesting facts and tidbits. So definitely join our platform so you can be a part of that broad discussion.
Right. And also, we forgot. Don't forget to follow Don.
Don, we can't forget Don. Don is the founder of all this. This was his heart, his love, his joy, and he
Mhm.
brought Nikkei and I along for the ride. Unfortunately, Don passed away earlier this year, but he has writings and books that are out there and anthologies that he contributed to. So we really want to continue to support his work, so that his family, and his legacy will go on in that respect. So definitely follow Dom and Scale. And if you go on to YouTube, you'll see some of our past posts that include him, so you kind of get to know who he was.
Right.
And he was a joy, and
Yeah.
we miss him. But
Yeah.
yep,
And also, we cannot forget opening music you heard was by Rob Rice.
we're
I,
official, y'all. We got our own theme music.
we fancy. We
We
fancy.
fancy.
He was also a dear friend of Don's, and he joined in on this and gave us some theme music. Go check him out on smoothology.net. Tell him we sent you, okay? Tell him we sent you. So until next time, that is a wrap. Stay
It
tuned
is.
to our page so you know what movie we're reviewing next. Until then, bye.
Bye.